You know, right now, at this very moment, someone somewhere is sitting in darkness feeling like they've come to the end of their rope. They've looked at their bank account and there's nothing there. They've looked at their relationships and they're falling apart. They've looked at their health and it's deteriorating. They've looked at their dreams and they seem impossible. And in that moment, they whisper to themselves, there's no way out of this. There's absolutely no way. But I'm here to tell you something that might sound strange at first, something that might even sound impossible to your logical mind. When there seems to be no way, when every door appears to be closed, when every avenue looks blocked, when every option seems exhausted, that's precisely when something magnificent happens. That's when God makes a way. Not your way, not the way you planned, not the way you expected, but a way that's so perfect, so divine, so absolutely right, that when you look back on it later, you'll shake your head in wonder and say, how did that happen? Now, I want you to understand something fundamental here. When I say God makes a way, I'm not talking about some bearded figure sitting on a cloud somewhere pulling strings and making magic happen for you. What I'm talking about is that infinite intelligence, that creative force, that loving presence that flows through all of life. You can call it God, you can call it the universe, you can call it source, you can call it whatever resonates with your heart. The name doesn't matter. What matters is understanding that this power exists, and it exists within you, not separate from you. You see, most of us have been taught to believe that we're separate from God, that we're down here struggling and God is up there watching. We've been taught that we need to beg, plead, pray harder, be good enough, do enough, suffer enough before we deserve God's help. But that's not how it works. That's not how it's ever worked. You are not separate from the divine source. You are an expression of it. You are a piece of it. You are connected to infinite possibility every single moment of your life. Think about it this way. You didn't create yourself. You didn't decide one day, I think I'll be born now. You didn't design your DNA. You didn't make your heart beat. You didn't tell your lungs to breathe. There's an intelligence within you right now that's managing trillions of cells, that's fighting off disease, that's digesting your food, that's growing your hair, that's healing your cuts. You don't have to think about any of it. It just happens. That same intelligence that created you and sustains you, that same force that puts stars in the sky and makes flowers bloom and turns winter into spring, that force is available to you in every circumstance of your life. But here's where most people get stuck. They say, well, if God is so powerful, if this infinite intelligence exists, why am I in this mess? Why is my life falling apart? Why can't I pay my bills? Why am I sick? Why am I alone? And that's a fair question. It's a question everyone asks at some point. But the answer isn't what you think. The answer is that you've been trying to control everything with your limited human perspective. You've been trying to figure it all out with your mind. You've been trying to force solutions, manipulate circumstances, push doors open that are meant to be closed. You've been living from your ego, from your fear, from your sense of separation, instead of living from that place of connection to the divine within you. Let me tell you something that changed my life when I finally understood it. Your ego, that voice in your head that never stops chattering, that part of you that worries and frets and plans and schemes, that part of you thinks it's protecting you, it thinks it's helping you, but really all it's doing is keeping you locked in a prison of limitation. Your ego can only see what's right in front of you. It can only work with what it knows. It can only create solutions based on past experience. And so when you're facing a situation that seems impossible, your ego looks at it and says, there's no way. We've tried everything. It's over. But your higher self, that part of you that's connected to infinite intelligence, that part of you sees a completely different picture. It sees possibilities you can't even comprehend. It sees solutions you haven't thought of. It sees paths that don't even exist yet, but will materialize the moment you need them. Your higher self isn't limited by time or space or circumstances. It's connected to everything and everyone. It knows things your conscious mind could never figure out. So when there seems to be no way, what's really happening is that your ego has exhausted all of its options. Your limited human mind has run out of ideas. And that's actually good news. That's cause for celebration. Because now, finally, you can get out of your own way and let God work through you. Now you can stop trying to control everything and surrender to something greater than yourself. I know the word surrender scares people. They think surrender means giving up, being weak, being passive, being a victim. But that's not what surrender means at all. Surrender means releasing your grip on how you think things should be and opening yourself to how things could be. It means saying, okay, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I trust that it will. I don't know where the solution is going to come from, but I trust that it's coming. I can't see the way forward, but I trust that the way will appear. When you surrender like that, when you genuinely let go and trust, something miraculous happens. You align yourself with that infinite intelligence. You become a channel for divine guidance. You open yourself to inspiration, intuition, synchronicity, and opportunities that you would have missed completely if you'd been trying to control everything. I've seen this happen over and over again in my own life and in the lives of countless people I've worked with. Someone loses their job and they're devastated. They think their career is over. They think they'll never find anything as good. They worry about money, about their future, about what people will think. And then if they can get past that fear and trust, if they can stay open, something better comes along. A job they never would have applied for, a business opportunity they never would have considered, a complete change of direction that turns out to be exactly what they needed, even though they didn't know it at the time. Someone gets divorced and they're heartbroken. They think they'll never love again. They think they've wasted years of their life. They feel like a failure. And then if they can heal and grow and trust, if they can see the divorce not as an ending but as a beginning, they meet someone who's perfect for them. Or they realize they don't need someone else to be happy. They find themselves. They find their purpose. They find a joy and peace they never had in that marriage. Someone gets diagnosed with a serious illness and they're terrified. They think it's a death sentence. They think their body has betrayed them. They feel like a victim. And then if they can shift their perspective and trust, if they can see the illness as a message from their body, as a wake-up call, as an opportunity to change their life, they heal. Maybe not always physically, though often physically too, but emotionally and spiritually. They heal their relationships. They heal their past. They find meaning and purpose they never had before. In every case, what looked like the worst thing that could happen turned out to be the catalyst for the best thing that could happen. But it only worked out that way because these people were willing to trust. They were willing to let go of their own plans and be open to a different plan. They were willing to say, I don't understand this now, but I trust that there's a reason for it. I trust that something good is going to come from this. That's faith, real faith. Not the kind of faith where you believe in something because someone told you to or because it's written in a book somewhere, but the kind of faith that comes from experience, from seeing over and over again that when you trust life, life supports you. When you trust God, God shows up for you. When you trust the universe conspires on your behalf. Now, I want to be clear about something. This doesn't mean you sit on your couch and wait for God to drop miracles in your lap. This doesn't mean you do nothing and expect everything to work out. That's not trust. That's laziness. What it means is that you do what you can do, you take the actions that are in front of you, you show up fully in your life, but you don't obsess over the outcome. You don't attach yourself so tightly to how things have to turn out that you miss the opportunities that are actually presenting themselves. You know what most people do? They pray for help, and then they ignore the help when it comes because it doesn't look the way they expected. They ask for a miracle, and then they dismiss the miracle because it seems too small or too ordinary or too different from what they had in mind. They beg God to make a way, and then they refuse to walk the path that appears because it's not the path they wanted. That's like standing in front of a door that's wide open and saying, but God, I wanted you to open that door over there, not this one. I'm not going through this door. This isn't the door I prayed for. Meanwhile, the door you're refusing to go through leads exactly where you need to go. But you can't see that because you're so attached to your own idea of how things should work out. This is why surrender is so important. This is why trust is so crucial. Because when you're truly surrendered, when you're truly trusting, you become flexible. You become open. You become willing to follow guidance, even when it doesn't make logical sense to your mind. You become willing to take the next step, even when you can't see the entire staircase. And that's how God makes a way. One step at a time, one moment at a time, one small action at a time. You don't get the whole plan laid out in front of you. You don't get a roadmap from where you are to where you want to be. You get the next step, just the next step. And when you take that step in faith, the next step appears. And when you take that one, the next one appears. And before you know it, you've walked a path you never could have planned, you never could have predicted, but that's brought you exactly where you needed to be. I want you to think about the times in your life when everything worked out, even though you couldn't see how it was going to. Think about the times when you were worried sick about something and then it resolved itself in a way you never expected. Think about the times when you needed help and it showed up from the most unlikely source. Think about the times when you needed money and it came from somewhere you never anticipated. Think about the times when you needed guidance and you got a phone call or read a book or had a conversation that gave you exactly what you needed. Those weren't coincidences. Those weren't lucky breaks. Those were examples of God making a way. Those were examples of infinite intelligence working through your life. Those were examples of the universe responding to your needs. And if it happened before, it can happen again. If it happened once, it can happen 1,000 times. If it worked then, it will work now. But you have to trust. You have to surrender. You have to let go of the illusion that you're in control of everything. You have to stop trying to figure it all out with your limited human mind. You have to stop forcing and pushing and manipulating. You have to relax into the flow of life and let yourself be guided. Now, here's something important. When I talk about letting go and surrendering, I'm not talking about being passive in the face of injustice. I'm not talking about accepting abuse or mistreatment. I'm not talking about staying in situations that are harmful to you. Surrender doesn't mean being a doormat. It means being smart enough to know when to act and when to wait. It means being wise enough to know when to fight and when to flow. It means being conscious enough to recognize the difference between a situation that needs to change and a situation that's changing you. Sometimes the way God makes is a way out. Sometimes it's a way through. Sometimes it's a way around. And sometimes it's a way of transforming you so completely that the situation that seemed impossible becomes irrelevant. Sometimes the miracle isn't that your circumstances change. Sometimes the miracle is that you change, and then your circumstances reflect that change. You see, we think we need our external world to change before we can be happy. We think we need more money, a better job, a perfect relationship, a healthier body, a different location before we can feel good about our lives. But the truth is exactly the opposite. When you change on the inside, when you shift your consciousness, when you align yourself with love instead of fear, with trust instead of doubt, with faith instead of worry, your external world has no choice but to reflect that change. Your outer world is always a mirror of your inner world. Always, without exception. If your life is chaotic, look at your mind. If your relationships are conflicted, look at your relationship with yourself. If you're struggling financially, look at your beliefs about abundance and worthiness. If you're sick, look at what emotions you've been suppressing, what thoughts you've been thinking, what stress you've been carrying. This isn't about blaming yourself. This isn't about feeling guilty or ashamed. This is about empowerment. Because if your outer world reflects your inner world, that means you have the power to change your life by changing yourself. You don't have to wait for anyone else to change. You don't have to wait for circumstances to be different. You can start right now, right where you are with what you have. And when you start making changes on the inside, when you start choosing love over fear, trust over doubt, faith over worry, when you start aligning yourself with that divine intelligence within you, you'll start to notice something amazing. You'll start to notice that the right people show up at the right time. You'll start to notice that the resources you need become available. You'll start to notice that solutions present themselves. You'll start to notice that doors open that were previously closed. You'll start to notice that life becomes easier, more flowing, more joyful. That's not magic. That's not wishful thinking. That's the natural result of aligning yourself with the creative force of the universe. That's what happens when you get your ego out of the way and let God work through you. That's what happens when you stop resisting life and start cooperating with it. But here's the thing that most people miss. This isn't a one-time decision. This isn't something you do once and then you're done. This is a practice. This is a daily, moment-by-moment choice to trust instead of fear, to surrender instead of control, to love instead of judge. Because your ego is persistent. It doesn't give up easily. It will keep trying to convince you that you need to worry, you need to control, you need to figure everything out yourself. So every day you have to make the choice again. Every day you have to surrender again. Every day you have to trust again. Some days it will be easy. Some days you'll feel connected and aligned and everything will flow beautifully. And some days it will be hard. Some days you'll feel disconnected and scared and you'll want to go back to your old ways of trying to control everything. That's okay. That's normal. That's part of being human. The key is not to judge yourself when you slip back into fear and control. The key is to notice it, acknowledge it, and then gently bring yourself back to trust and surrender. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. This is a journey, not a destination. You're learning to live in a completely different way than you were taught. You're learning to trust something you can't see instead of relying only on what you can see. That takes practice. And here's something beautiful. The more you practice, the easier it gets. The more you trust and see that things work out, the easier it becomes to trust the next time. The more you surrender and see that you're guided, the easier it becomes to surrender the next time. The more you witness God making a way when there seemed to be no way, the more your faith grows and the more natural this way of living becomes. Eventually, you reach a point where trust is your default setting instead of fear, where surrender is your first response instead of control, where you automatically look for the good in every situation instead of focusing on what's wrong, where you see challenges as opportunities instead of obstacles, where you see endings as beginnings instead of losses, where you see the divine intelligence working in everything instead of seeing yourself as separate and alone. When you reach that point, life becomes an adventure instead of a struggle. Problems become interesting puzzles instead of overwhelming crises. Uncertainty becomes exciting instead of terrifying. The unknown becomes filled with possibility instead of danger. You start to live from a place of curiosity and wonder instead of fear and anxiety. And the beautiful thing is, this isn't reserved for special people. This isn't just for saints or mystics or spiritual teachers. This is available to everyone. This is your birthright as a human being. This is what you were designed for. You were designed to live in partnership with the divine, not in separation from it. You were designed to trust, not to fear. You were designed to flow with life, not to resist it. But somewhere along the way, most of us forgot that. We got programmed to believe we're alone, we're separate, we have to do everything ourselves, we can't trust anyone or anything. We learned to be afraid, we learned to control, we learned to struggle, and now we're learning to unlearn all of that. We're learning to remember who we really are and how life really works. And once you remember, once you really get this, everything changes. Not because your circumstances necessarily change, though they often do, but because you change. You become someone who knows they're never alone. You become someone who trusts that they're always guided. You become someone who knows that even when things look impossible, a way will be made. You become someone who has faith, not because they're naive or delusional, but because they've seen it work over and over again in their own life. That's the person you're becoming right now, whether you know it or not. That's the person you already are underneath all the fear and doubt and worry. That's who you really are. When you strip away all the programming and conditioning and false beliefs, you are a divine being having a human experience. You are an expression of infinite intelligence. You are connected to everything and everyone. You are loved beyond measure. You are guided every moment of your life. And when you really know that, when you really feel that, when you really live from that place, you'll never again believe that there's no way. You'll know that even when you can't see the way, even when every door seems closed, even when every option seems exhausted, God is making a way. Not might make a way, not could make a way, is making a way right now, this very moment. The way might not be visible yet. The solution might not be clear yet. The path might not be obvious yet. But it's forming, it's coming together, it's being created, and all you have to do is trust. All you have to do is stay open. All you have to do is take the next step that's in front of you, even if it seems small or insignificant or unrelated to your problem. Because here's the secret. God often makes a way through the most unexpected avenues. The solution to your problem might come through a chance conversation with a stranger. It might come through a book you randomly pick up. It might come through an idea that pops into your head in the shower. It might come through someone you meet at a party you didn't even want to go to. It might come through a failure that redirects you to something better. It might come through a delay that puts you exactly where you need to be at exactly the right time. That's why you have to stay open. That's why you can't get too rigid about how things have to work out. That's why you can't dismiss opportunities just because they don't look the way you expected. That's why you have to pay attention to the guidance you're receiving, even when it doesn't make logical sense. Your intuition is God speaking to you. Those gut feelings, those hunches, those inner knowings, those are the voice of infinite intelligence guiding you. But most people ignore their intuition because it doesn't make sense to their logical mind. They ignore it because it seems too risky or too different or too unlikely. And then later they look back and say, I knew I should have listened to that feeling. I knew I should have followed that instinct. Learn to listen to that voice. Learn to trust that guidance. Learn to act on those intuitive nudges even when they don't make logical sense. Because that's how God makes a way. Through you. Through your intuition. Through your inner guidance. Through that still small voice within you that always knows what you need to do next. And here's the thing, that voice is always there. It never goes away. Even when you can't hear it, it's still speaking. Even when you're lost in fear and doubt and confusion, it's still guiding you. You just have to get quiet enough to hear it. You have to turn down the volume on all the external noise and all the mental chatter and listen to that wisdom within you. That's what meditation is for. That's what prayer is for. That's what silence is for. Not to get something from God, but to hear what God is already telling you. Not to change God's mind, but to align your mind with God's mind. Not to beg for help, but to open yourself to the help that's already being offered. And when you do that, when you make space for that connection, when you prioritize that relationship with the divine within you, everything else falls into place. Not always in the way you expect, not always on your timeline, but always in the way that's best for you, always at exactly the right time. So if you're facing a situation right now that seems impossible, if you're dealing with a problem that has no apparent solution, if you're in a circumstance where there seems to be no way out, I want you to take a breath and relax. I want you to let go of the need to figure it all out. I want you to release the fear and the worry and the doubt. I want you to trust that even though you can't see the way, a way is being made. Even though you don't know how it's going to work out, it's working out. Even though you can't imagine a solution is forming. Your job is not to know how. Your job is not to figure it all out. Your job is not to control every detail. Your job is simply to trust, to stay open, to follow your guidance, and to take the next step that's in front of you. That's it. That's all you have to do. And when you do that, you'll be amazed at what happens. You'll be amazed at the doors that open. You'll be amazed at the people who show up. You'll be amazed at the opportunities that present themselves. You'll be amazed at the way that seemed impossible becomes not only possible, but perfect. Because that's what God does. That's what infinite intelligence does. That's what the universe does when you get out of your own way and let it work through you. It creates miracles. Not the kind of miracles where the laws of physics are suspended, but the kind of miracles where everything comes together in a way that's so perfect, so coordinated, so precisely timed that you know it couldn't have been random. You know you were guided. You know you were helped. You know there's something greater than yourself working in your life. And once you experience that, once you really feel that, once you live that, you're changed forever. You can never go back to believing you're alone. You can never go back to believing you have to do everything yourself. You can never go back to believing that when there seems to be no way, you're stuck. Because now you know. You know from experience that when there seems to be no way, that's exactly when God makes a way. Every single time. Without fail. Always.